morning and welcome to Lovin Daily. I'm Sam Vassallo. It's a Tuesday, it's almost Wednesday, which means we're almost halfway through the week. Feels like a heat wave. I'm here with Tim Diacono. How are you, Tim Diacono?
Hi, Sam. We're also halfway through the month, by the way.
Also. Doing good?
I'm good.
Let's go straight into the headlines. So, President says he won't remove Adrian Delia as opposition leader. A junior minister says glitch behind taxpayer-funded video on personal page. A man with Nazi tattoos renounces his troubled past. A Nigerian influencer kidnapped by FBI might have stolen 13 million from a Maltese bank. And athletes to run 190 kilometers after Malta catches challenge fever.
Yes. So, let's start off with the story on everybody's lips, which is the president's decision yesterday afternoon not to remove Adrian Delia as opposition leader, even though the majority of his MPs declared that they no longer have trust in him. The president's argument is that even though the constitution does state that he is empowered to remove an opposition leader who doesn't enjoy the trust of his MPs, the constitution also states that the opposition leader must be the leader of the largest party in opposition, which is the Nationalist Party. And obviously Adrian Delia has refused to resign as leader of the Nationalist Party. The president had a number of options, had a number of potential choices to make, and he chose the path of least resistance, I would say, which is to leave everything as it is. He used the words continuity, like I'm opting for continuity and as much as stability as possible in our parliamentary system. Adrian Delia stays. Is this over? Absolutely not, because Adrian Delia last night gave an interview where he really laid it all out against his MPs who have repeatedly opposed him. He said, I've tried, but once you've showed me time and time again that you don't trust me and will not trust me to be your leader, I will not trust you ever again. And he actually named 4 MPs who he will never trust again. Therese Comodini-Kakia, who was the person named to replace him.
Painful.
Yeah, Chris Said, Claudette Buttigieg, and David Take, who was also, who also had quite a few choice words to make about his leadership. And now there's going to be an executive council meeting this evening around 7 p.m. and we expect it to be quite a heated meeting where all of this is going to be trashed out with potential serious implications for the future of the say rebels of the MPs who opposed him. So now there is also going to be a debate over whether the party should split into two parties or not. What do you think?
Well, personally, I think that this isn't the first time that the president should have intervened and didn't. As we know, last December, there were calls for the president to intervene and ask Joseph Muscat to resign, and he said that he would, leave it in the Labour Party's hands. And once again, there are calls for the president to actually intervene, and it is very clearly written out in the Constitution that he should intervene, and he hasn't. For me, this just feels like the easy way out of a very serious crisis in Malta and a crisis to our democracy. We are closer and closer to being a one-state party, which is not good for democracy at all.
Yes, that is a fair point to make. There's also another valid argument, which is that the president shouldn't be interfering in the internal affairs of political parties, and this would have said the president. However, this was an unprecedented situation, as the president himself remarked, and we're now in this anomalous situation where, as a matter of fact, the leader of the opposition is entrusted by the majority of his own MPs. And we know this, as in, the president actually said this as a fact. It's no longer just, rumors or reports. It's a fact. And the election is what, at least around between 2 years away. And now remember, this is a party which is meant to be trying to form an alternative government 2 years for an election. It's discussing whether to keep the leader or not. whether to sack more than half of its MPs or not. And it's an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
So
essentially, it's the perfect scenario for the Labour Party. I mean, they're just watching it crash
and
and
burn.
burn.
Don't have to do anything.
And don't have to do anything. So let's move on. This junior minister, it is Rosanna Couturier, has apologized for a video that she uploaded to her private page after, Lovin Malta had exposed that the cabinet is essentially misusing public funds. In fact, the whole cabinet is under investigation for this. Yesterday, Rosanna Couturier, who is the Parliamentary Secretary for Equality and Reforms, uploaded a video against stereotypes. It was a really sweet video, but she uploaded it to her private page instead of the page, her government page. So the problem is that this is taxpayer funded, essentially, and she is using it to, as many other politicians are, using it to gather a following on her private page, so that eventually when they'd have to step down or the time in politics ends, they have this huge following and they can use it for whatever they please, business or so on.
Yeah, no, I mean, there were, like when we published the story yesterday, there were quite a few people who were saying, like, you're focusing on this, you're nitpicking. And fair enough, like on at face value, I get that argument, like who really cares if a video is uploaded to her page or to the ministry's page, and whether she shares it or re-uploads it, as in, what does it matter? But it does matter, it matters a real lot, because there was a culture that was formed over the years, whereby, not just Rosanna, I mean, Couturier, like everyone basically, were just misusing public funds to create videos intended for their personal pages that they would then use for blatant political propaganda, and that creates a democratic imbalance. Now, what's really noteworthy about this is that Rosanna Couturier realized that this was a mistake, it was a glitch. She's not trying to defend it and saying it's not a big deal. She realized it was a mistake, and it seems that yes, no, it's a cultural change that is going to have to start happening, going to start occurring within Maltese politics in the social media age. And what's important is that people start flagging this. So when this is going to be, I don't think Rosanna Couturier is going to be the last person to fall foul of these new ethical guidelines. I mean, they're quite new. They're going to take some time to adapt to. And what's important is that people, learn what these guidelines are, so that if they notice any abuses, they can flag it themselves. And the more politicians realize that people are watching them, and they won't tolerate these kind of abuses, the less likely it is that these abuses will happen in the first place. And
that politicians are held accountable for their actions, and that is something that needs to change in Malta, and the culture needs to progress.
So, moving on. There was quite an interesting story yesterday. A man with a swastika tattoo, and as well as a tattoo of Adolf Hitler's face on his arm, is renouncing his past, basically. So we recently published a story about a man with face tattoos who was, saying that the fact that he has face tattoos means he can't find any job whatsoever, because potential employers are judging him based on that. And there were a couple of people who commented to that story saying that probably the reason he's not getting a job isn't because of his face tattoos, but because of other tattoos he has, namely the Nazi tattoos. So we decided to speak to him about this, so is it true, do you have these Nazi tattoos, and if so, why? And he did, and he showed them to us, and they're quite intricate tattoos, to be honest, and there's a whole face of Adolf Hitler. But anyway, he said he got these tattoos when he was 18. There was this cult or whatever that he felt enamored by, and he got this tattoo, and now he's in his 30s, and he regrets doing it. But he said, I found Jesus now, I renounce what I did, but the tattoo is there. And it cost €1,000 to remove it. I don't have the money, and I can't find a job. So the tattoo is still there. So
it's just a hopeless cycle. I think just sparks a debate about our need to give people second chances. I know this sounds a bit cheesy and whatever, but it's just this continuous cycle. You know, you have someone who is clearly marginalized in their teens, found, you know, sanctuary within this gang that supported Nazism. You know, he is clearly trying to improve his own life and doors aren't opening for him to do that. And this opens another door to further radicalization and further marginalization and more possibility of you know, crime or other social problems.
Yeah, for sure. And it also just makes you think sometimes, like how many people who are, you know, would be. You know, we talk a lot about people, of the rise of people becoming, you know, of Nazism becoming more and more popular, and people, you know, finding these ideas more and more attractive. I think, you know, it's pretty great to see that some people who used to believe in those ideas are now, you know, to hear about people who renounce those ideas. So, yeah, moving on. What about Hushpuppy, Sam? Can you tell us about him?
Interesting story here. So there's a Nigerian influencer named Hushpuppy on Instagram who has been, as said by his lawyer, kidnapped by the FBI, and he might be the culprit who stole 13 million from the Maltese bank BOV. It's quite an insane story, I think. So essentially, Hushpuppy, who has around 2.5 million followers on Instagram, if you see his posts on Instagram, they're something out of, you know, a dream, private jets and the most expensive cars and Versace this and Gucci that. Essentially, he was kidnapped by the FBI in collaboration with Dubai police because they claim he stole the 13 million in this major cyber heist last February. Same amount was stolen from BOV in the same month. So this is what they're thinking. There was also a US company involved, and that explains the involvement of the FBI. Fascinating story, also quite scary, you know, in the context of the Internet of Things and how easily, essentially nowadays, I don't believe it's politicians who are in control, it's people who know how to use a computer, who know how to hack, and the more we're connected to the grid, you know, the easier, the more vulnerable we are. Absolutely,
and what I find quite shocking about all of this is that when the hack did occurred on Bank of Valletta a few years ago, there were rumors and reports that this could be like a group of really seasoned hackers. There were, I think, some reports linking it to North Korea even, and it turned out apparently to be this one guy with his accomplice who managed to basically get into our system, our largest bank, and make off with 13 million euro. Now obviously he's been caught, thankfully, if it's him, and one would expect the money to be returned. However, it does really, as you said, flag how, you know, how insecure the systems of our most delicate companies, or this is like the largest bank in Malta, how insecure they can be, and how, you know, intelligent hackers and, you know, cybercrime can be nowadays.
I mean, if this is not promotion for studying IT at university, then I don't know what is.
In what way? To make off with the money, or to
well, I don't know what you're going to do with the skills. I'm just saying, you know, if you're looking for something to study, it seems that IT is the thing to do.
Yeah, yes, it's definitely something that will come in useful. Something else that, you know, might also come in useful is fitness, and in
Not
fact,
my forte, going to be honest.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, fair enough. And two Maltese athletes are going to run 190 kilometers over 35 hours straight on the 25th of July, so that's next week, across Malta and even Gozo, to raise money for the education of refugee children. Not your cup of tea?
Super noble cause. I wish them absolute luck. It seems that they're going to be running from Malta to Gozo and back, and running up hills and a la Kate Bush. Definitely not my cup of tea. I don't think I've ever run an hour straight in my life, to be honest. But it seems that Malta's caught this challenge fever, you know, finding causes they believe in and doing some kind of sport to raise awareness. And this is this is an amazing feat. I don't think it's ever been done before.
No, it hasn't.
And it's a super great cause that we need to be focusing on now, with the pandemic, making things worse for the most vulnerable in society. There's also the challenge that activist Cami Applegren finished, where they kayaked around Malta, and they finished that, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah, that was another 24-hour journey. Then there was obviously the journey of Nila Ju swimming from Sicily to Malta. And it seems to be shaping up to be a summer of challenges. And now this could be, I suspect, the bowl. I don't know, is it Bowden, one of Nila Juice? I'm not sure. It might be though. It actually might be, because you remember this is in summer, so they're going to be sweating. There might be a heat wave then as well, and these guys are going to be running across hills and Maltese terrain for 35 hours straight, no sleep.
I suppose it's a better challenge than the pandemic challenge that we're facing. And in fact, speaking of the pandemic, Malta seems to be on a record. We haven't recorded one case in the past few days. Tomorrow is a big day as well, because Malta will open its airport to more countries. We're expecting more tourists. Some of the attractions in Valletta opening as well, St. John's Cathedral. We'll see how the cases progress. We're doing very well so far. I believe we're going to be one of the first countries to reach 0 cases in Europe, so that's super great.
We'll see about that, but yeah, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. And that is our show today. This was Lovin Daily. I was your host, Sam Vassallo, joined with Lovin Malta's editor, Tim Diacono. Have a full day of Lovin.